Welcome to the Ginger Dog Knits podcast. This is Obi, and I'm Catherine, and it's Obi's birthday today. He's sliding off my lap. So, we're going to start the podcast with him in his handsome sweater, because he's wearing his sweater for his birthday, and you'll soon see why. I also let Obi pick my outfit out today. So we're starting off really strong. Obi is 3 years old. He's a big, handsome man. And he is so adult and so handsome and so mature. He's going to go scream at squirrels the second I put him down. Obi is wearing, if he could sit still, Obi is wearing the Vargö dog sweater, which is the dog sweater version of one of my works in progress. So we're going to match. We're going to match. Okay, he's going to get done. I also let Obi pick out my outfit, so I'm going to start with what I'm wearing then, and we're going to celebrate Obi's birthday on the podcast, because what else am I going to do with my dog than be deranged on the internet? I am wearing the Rivers and Roads cowl. Obi himself picked it out. It is his favorite color. He loves blue. It's one of the only colors he can see. And this is knit in, oh my god, I keep saying the wrong samples you are. I have two samples of this pattern. This is my design. I always want to say that this is the Explorer Knits one and that that's the Nerdy Knits one. That's not true. Flip-flop them. I don't know why my brain jumps to that. They're not even remotely similar. This is knit in Nerdy Knits DK, which is the variegated. That's the colorway Zelda. And the nice teal semi-solid is the colorway Zonai, and that is sport and mohair held together. This project was the project that I had to learn the hard way that mohair is not for me, unfortunately. So if I get toasty, I might take this off, but it's a little itchier. If this was Sari, I might be a little bit more comfortable, but I do really love how it feels. I think if it weren't on my neck, it might be a little bit better, but c'est la vie. So, yay, welcome. I didn't even do my intro because I started with my dog. So, hello, welcome. If you're new here, my name is Catherine. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the creative brains behind Ginger Dog Knits. I'm a knitwear designer, a knitter, and a novice spinner. And my main shtick is, ow, apparently hitting my funny bone while I'm filming. Holy shit, that really hurt. My shtick is chaos, apparently. My thing is trans-inclusive, well-fitting knitwear. I am transgender. I'm non-binary. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that this week because, spoiler alert, my top surgery process is moving along a lot faster than expected. Very excited. But a big part of my mission as a designer is to create especially garment designs that are not only flattering for trans people, but can also be easily modified for the body that you have, rather than the body that the fashion industry thinks you have. So if you're new here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. I'm really happy to be here. This has been a really big source of joy for me lately, so I'm really, really excited. This week I have some really fun updates on some projects I've been working on. I have one finished object, which I'm a very slow knitter, so that's a big deal. And I have some spinning to show you, which is always a fun time because I don't always have time to spin. Spinning always seems to be the thing that falls to the wayside when I'm busy. So I do have some spinning to share. Yay! I think this week I'm gonna start with works in progress because I want to show you my matching sweater that Obi just modeled. I'm knitting my partner a matching sweater because Obi is my partner's dog, technically. I mean, we have them together, but, you know. Millie also has the same one in different colors, and I'm going to make myself one, so we all have matching family sweaters, but Alex and Obi match. So this is Alex's version. I finally split for sleeves this week. This is the Vargö sweater, human edition. This is just a top-down round yoke sweater. And this pattern is by Sari Nordlund. I've never knit anything of Sari's. This is the first time I've knit one of her patterns, and I'm really pleased with it so far. The fit is much better than expected. I think I'm going to try this on because I have it on my little silicone cords. I'm just going to unclip my mic so I can do that so I don't blast everyone's eardrums out. This sweater is knit. So if you know me, you know that it's a rarity that I work with acrylic yarn. I'm going to put this on so I can put this back on. Okay, and I don't knit, or I don't knit. Welcome to my knitting podcast. Holy shit. I don't edit this podcast. So this is how it fits. It does not fit me particularly well, which is good because this sweater is not for me. This sweater is for Alex. So I made a couple of modifications and I'll walk you through them. But it's a rarity for me to knit with acrylic, but this yarn is acrylic and I quite like it, surprisingly enough. This is Lion brand. I wonder if I have a skein of it sitting around. I might. No, I don't this year. Oops. This year. Wow, welcome to the shit show. It's bad this week, y'all. Oh Lord. I don't have a skein of it sitting around, but I think I showed off a skein of it last time even. This is Lion brand Color Theory, which is a worsted weight acrylic yarn. I have a lot of sensory issues with acrylic yarn. I can immediately feel that like plasticky handle that it kind of has to it. And it makes me overheat. I already have issues with heat regulation, so it's just not for me. But this is actually surprisingly, it doesn't feel super squeaky like many acrylic yarns do. It doesn't give me that like overheated feeling. I guess it remains to be seen once I actually complete the sweater. But and you can see some of the fit points where this sweater doesn't fit me. But it will fit Alex a lot better. Alex and I both have very different fit preferences. So I knew going in that I wanted to make matching sweaters for the dogs and for us too. But I refused to knit for the dogs in wool because they're always coming in and out of the house. They're always getting dirty. And I don't want to knit them something in really nice yarn and then have them ruin it. So I decided to just make them all acrylic and just kind of bite the bullet instead of trying to like color match and spend all the time and then have to swatch a separate yarn. It just was a lot easier to make them all the same because these patterns are sister patterns, both from the same designer. So it's just kind of easier on me, the maker, to make them all in the same yarn. So I did make that decision. Alex doesn't care so much about the acrylic thing, so I will knit for Alex in acrylic, but I won't really knit for myself in acrylic. I need fabrics that are breathable, and plastic is not breathable. Alex doesn't care so much. Alex likes to be toasty, so if I have acrylic yarn that I need to get rid of, I'm usually making something for Alex. I don't mind knitting with acrylic. I just don't like wearing it. So that is my surprising journey of coming to like an acrylic yarn. This is not a half bad yarn. I'll get closer to the camera so you can see. This is what the colors look like together. The blue is called Stonewash, and the gray is called Satellite. And I'm not the world's neatest colorwork knitter. You can kind of see some puckering here, but I'm hoping that evens out with blocking. This is, it kind of surprisingly feels almost cottony, or maybe a little bit like a not super high quality silk blended with cotton. I don't really know how to describe it. It's got a little bit of luster, but not a huge amount, and it is quite slick to the touch. There's a lot of plies in this yarn. It is a little bit slippy, but I don't hate knitting with it. It's pretty pleasant to work with. It's pretty nice. It's got a pretty nice handle to the actual fibers that are in the yarn. I have a hair in my mouth. And it's been a pretty pleasant experience. I'm really happy with the gauge. I want to talk about the fit of this because that's been kind of my main journey with this project. Alex and I So this is going to be a really good demonstration of upper bust versus full bust measurement when you're picking a sweater size. Millie, can we stop throwing stuff? Thank you, baby. My upper bust measurement, so your upper bust, if you're not aware, your upper bust is, so if you would take your full bust at the widest point of your bust, your upper bust kind of goes up here. I don't describe it super well. It's one of those measurements that kind of sometimes falls by the wayside because a lot of default sizing goes to your full bust, but it's actually a lot more accurate in many cases to go with your upper bust measurement. And that is because you can have the same, this is a great example of this, you can have the same upper bust. So Alex and I have the exact same upper bust measurement. Alex is maybe an inch to half an inch taller than I am. We're very similar heights, very similar build, but I have a lot wider hips and a lot longer torso. And Alex is a little bit stockier and has a little bit more of like I don't want to say like a tube shape to their body, but they have a much fuller bust than I do, and then their body kind of that bulk is distributed a lot more evenly throughout the torso, whereas I'm very bottom heavy. So I end up actually being a smaller size up top than I am on the bottom. I have to buy like 1 or 2 sizes up in pants usually. Because I have a big butt and big hips. And Alex is a little bit more, a little bit less of an outlier, I guess, measurement-wise, in terms of kind of where they fall on a size chart. So their cup size is also bigger than mine is, and they also have scoliosis. So I wanted to keep that in mind because my back is a lot broader than Alex's is, and their front needs a lot more fabric than mine does. I am also getting top surgery this summer, so I will soon have no full bust, which is a very exciting thing for me to think about, and I'm going to talk about that soon. But Alex does not want full flatness. There may be a reduction in the future. I don't really know what they're thinking, but like, even if they do decide to do that, they'll still very likely have some kind of a full bust. So everybody has a full bust, but they will very likely have some kind of breast tissue to compensate for fabric-wise. So because this is a round yoke sweater, the stitch counts all around are supposed to accommodate for the sleeves being separated out when you split. And I ended up actually making a mistake, which led to this decision, and I'm really glad I made this mistake because it turned out really well. Alex has a lot more tissue up here. Like, this is very flat for me. My sternum down to right about where my breast tissue starts is very flat. Alex is a little bit more top heavy, and they have a lot broader shoulder. So like where this is gapping on me will be filled in on Alex, which is really nice. I actually have a lot fewer stitches in the back of this sweater. I'm going to take it off so you can see. You can kind of see it when I hold it up a little bit better. I'm going to put my cowl back on so I can put my mic back on. I ordered a new microphone that's not a lapel mic, so hopefully that helps with this. I like how my dogs want to play immediately when I start filming the podcast. And I've been sleeping all morning otherwise. See how easy this was, by the way? You're welcome. If you haven't knit this yet, you should. Not to promote my own pattern or anything, but it is a fun knit. I'm not sure how well you heard that with the microphone sitting down, but the back of this sweater, I actually ended up having an incorrect stitch count when I split for sleeves. I followed the directions, so I put one sleeve on hold, knit across the front, had the correct amount of sleeves in the front, or stitches in the front, split for my next sleeve, and then I didn't have enough stitches in the back. So you can see where the back is kind of nipped in the underarm. So the pattern recommends doing short row shaping at the underarm on the back to make the back hem a little bit longer and keep it from riding up. So because I knew I wasn't going to do a bust dart because of the color work here, and there is no bust dart written into this pattern, that short row shaping was more than likely going to make the front of the sweater ride up. So I actually decided, instead of frogging back my split for sleeves, I had literally just done it when I realized, so it's pretty early. I decided to actually keep it like this to give me a little bit more fabric in the front, because when I was trying on the yoke, it was actually a little bit big. And there was still plenty of ease to go around. This is also going to block out a little bit. The dog sweater that I knit with this same yarn blocked out really well too. So I actually ended up just doing some nice increases during the short row section. You can kind of see it right underneath the color work. I'm not going to use my hand to point it out because it's going to be kind of hard to hold it up, but I put in a couple of just evenly spaced decreases in one row, and then I knit 4 short rows, and then I did it again so that they weren't too close together and they didn't pucker. And that actually created a really nice shape to give me a little bit more room in the full bust and a nice nipped in back at the back of the shoulder. So I am really pleased with how this is turning out, and then I'm just knitting straight for the body. It looks quite large because of the way that it's sitting on these silicone cords, but it's draping really nicely. It fits really nicely. Like I said, it'll block out a lot of these little fabric inconsistencies. I'm really happy with it. I'm not the neatest colorwork knitter in the world, so I'm really pleased with how this is coming along. So that's my soapbox, my fit soapbox. A happy accident led to a good fit decision, hopefully. And I'm already really pleased with how the yoke fits Alex. When I tried it on right before I split for the sleeves, it was looking a little bit wide at the shoulder. So I think this actually solved that problem inadvertently. And I'm hoping that it actually does work out. I don't think I'm going to know until after I block it. So I'm a little bit nervous, but fingers crossed. Hope for the best. Like I said in the last episode, I have not knit that many garments, even though I've been knitting for most of my life. So garments freaked me out for the longest time, and I didn't attempt my first sweater until like 2 years ago. So I really only have a couple, like 2 or 3 or 4 sweaters knit for myself. I made my partner a couple of things, and that's really about it. So I am learning as I go, and I think I know more theory than I know practically right now. So I'm just trying to knit as many garments as I can, because I have some garment ideas that I want to get on paper, and I need to do my homework first and understand construction a little better. So I've got my nice book library, I've got my nice playlists full of YouTube videos and ready to roll kind of a thing, but there's a certain amount of things about fit that you don't know until you do it. So that's what I'm looking forward to right now. That's what I'm learning right now. I'm hoping that my version of this sweater, which I may not get to for a little while, depending, because I have some other priority knits that are going to take a little bit more of a front seat. I am assuming that that's going to be a lot more straightforward. And now I know that I need to keep a closer eye on my stitch count. So Alex has a lot more difficult fit points than I do. And knowing that I'm no longer going to have this full bust issue in a couple of months, I can just kind of knit myself a tube. And that's how I like my clothes to fit anyway. Which I have that luxury. All of my fit issues are from the underarm up, because I have a very narrow shoulder. My shoulders are very narrow for my body size. So hopefully that doesn't cause me too many issues post-surgery recovery, but that's also why I'm not knitting myself very many garments right now, because I don't know how things are going to fit after I have surgery. So I'm mostly focusing my garment knitting right now on other people, because I don't know my measurements. I know my measurements right now. By the time I'm done knitting myself a garment, I'm going to be in recovery, and I'm going to have totally different measurements. So I'm a little bit nervous, but fingers crossed that goes well. I guess I'll talk about that now, and then I have 2 other works in progress. Actually, I really only have one to share, because one of them is this sock, and I have worked exactly 2 rows on it since we last talked. It's identical to how it was last episode. So if you want the deets on those socks, just watch episode 4. I talk about them there. I'll talk about my next work in progress, and then I'll talk about top surgery, because that's relevant and exciting. This is my Wildwood Socks pattern. This is in testing right now. I have the first sock knit, did some preliminary photographs, and then decided I was sick of it. So I had already knit 2 socks because my first was my swatch and it didn't fit. So I had to re-knit it and then had to knit a 3rd sock. So I had a pair. I ended up frogging the swatch sock that was too small on my foot, and I just turned it into hexie puffs for my beekeeper's quilt. Beekeeper's quilt. Full disclosure, I have a stutter. I'm a little self-conscious about it, but I try to laugh about it when it comes up. Sometimes I mix words up, stuff like that. So it happens. It's just gonna happen. Just deal with it. Sorry, I'm not sorry. I'm not apologizing for my speech impediment. Anyway, this is my second Wildwood sock. I finally have a heel on it. I have about 3 more stitch repeats to go. So I'm very, very happy that these are almost off my needles. I'll show you the completed one. This is what the socks look like completed and blocked and all pretty. And I'm very happy with it. This yarn is some of the nicest sock yarn I've ever worked with. This is Arcane Fiberworks fingering. It's 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and it is a 4-ply 80/20. I'll have you know, which I love. I love a 2-ply sock yarn, don't get me wrong, but they do wear out a little quicker. So I love a 4-ply that's 80/20 because I do like that softness factor. Because I have a lot of sensory issues. This is going to be a recurring theme, y'all. I'm actually doing okay with the mohair today because it's a little bit chillier out, but on a normal day, mohair is not a great choice for me for that exact reason. Live, laugh, love. Autism. That was my air freshener, by the way. Sorry. Those are my works in progress. I don't have a whole lot else to show for my knitting life right now because everything else is pattern development and is not ready to be shown anywhere yet, let alone to my tech editor. So that will be for my eyes only until I get that life figured out a little bit better. I've got some projects I'm working on that need a little love. So let's talk about top surgery, and then I'll show you some finished objects and some spinning. Top surgery is something that has been on my agenda for this year. However, my consult was originally scheduled for April, and this past week was moved up to 2 days from today. So I'm filming this on Sunday, and my appointment is on Tuesday. So I have to take a half-day work and drive 2 hours to my surgeon, and I'm real nervous. I'm hoping that they'll let me schedule a surgery date this week. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. I don't know a ton of what to expect, but I do know that the surgeon's office has been lovely so far, so I'm feeling good about that. I just kind of have to get it done, and I'm hoping that'll answer a lot of my questions and kind of help with the anticipating change. And I'm not sure if I've talked about this on this platform yet, but I have an intense fear of surgery. I've never had major surgery. I've only ever had an outpatient procedure done. I had a mole removed when I was in elementary school, and it was basically a 3 stitches and you're done kind of a thing. I didn't even go under. I had my wisdom teeth out. That's maybe the closest I've gotten to going under, but never had major incisive surgery. So I'm very nervous and I'm freaking out a little bit, but it's okay because it needs to happen. It is getting to the point where I can no longer move forward. This is now impacting my knitting career. So I need to get my measurements under control, because if I'm knitting for a body I don't have yet, that's problematic for my pattern releases because I can't photograph them on myself. And then it means that all of the lovely things that I'm making I won't be able to wear after surgery if I make them to my measurements right now. So that's one reason, but also just my mental health it's been better this year than it was a couple of years ago, but it still hasn't been great the last 5 years since I came out as non-binary and did the whole gender questioning thing. So I would love to get that under control. Thankfully, medication has helped, but it's not everything, and gender dysphoria is kind of the next hurdle. So I'm hoping this will alleviate most, if not all, of those issues. Fingers crossed. I I think more so than anything else, I'm just kind of, I want to kind of just get it over with and like know what to expect. So the consult is a big hurdle right now because I don't have a surgery date. I don't have any expectations about what the surgery woo, about what this surgeon does procedurally and kind of her like specifics and her personality. I've never met her. I've only ever worked with her front desk staff, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm also a little bit nervous. I've heard good things, but she is also based in a town that is pretty red and pretty. If you know upstate New York, you know what I'm talking about. But this is kind of a rural-ish community that has a very high saturation of people who do not like trans people. So, TBA on how that hospital experience will go. I guess if I'm lucky enough to get excellent staff, things will be okay. But I'm crossing my fingers that it's a smooth ordeal and that I don't have to worry about too much. So that's happening in my life this week. I'm very excited. I'm stressed and I want to get it over with. So hopefully I'll be able to report back next time and let y'all know how it went. But life updates aside, I do have a couple other things to share before we get on to the rest of the podcast. I think I'm going to start with my spinning because my finished object ties in kind of with something that I want to discuss in general. So I'm currently spinning some Rambouillet from Hello Yarn. I've been craving some spring colors lately because it's almost spring. So this has been kind of sitting in my stash really since I started spinning. This is one of the first fibers that I ordered for my stash when I was like, I want to try a couple of different breeds. I want to get a few different braids to experiment with. And this is just one I never got around to spinning. This is the colorway Flip on Rambouillet. So it's got some of these like raspberry pinks. There's a little bit of scarlet in there and a tiny bit of like a steel gray and a little bit of navy with some browns. So, and some like rosy pinks. Spinning up really nicely. I already have one of my bobbins full of singles. So I'm hoping this shows up okay. I'm spinning this pretty fine. It's probably going to end up about a fingering weight. It'll be a 2-ply. And I'm spinning this fractal style. So I spun this. This is just half the braid split down the middle, spun end to end. And this is 2 sections of the other half of the braid that I kind of split again. And then I'm going to spin end to end again so that the colors kind of are staggered in a way that means that they'll blend really cool in a knit fabric. So I'm excited to see how it plies up. I still have to spin another bobbin of singles, but I have been just like stroking my plyback samples because they're so squishy this whole time. I'm a big fan. Rambouillet is one of my favorite fibers to spin. So it's just so spongy. Like even just touching the single, it's like these are pretty fine singles. So sometimes if you spin singles this fine, it can feel kind of twiny and ropey on the bobbin because it's under tension. But even this in the singles is like, there's some serious bounce factor. Oh my God, it's so nice. It smells nice and woolly. So I'm very, very excited about this. I'm spinning this on my Ashford Kiwi, which lives over here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll get this done this week, but I'd like to because I've been missing spinning a lot lately. I just have not had time. This is a very busy time of year for me at my day job. I work in college housing, and this is around when we're hiring staff. Students are selecting housing for next year. It's spring break, so we had to close for spring break, which means we have to check every single room. And I'm managing 50 staff members doing all of this. It's a lot of work. It's basically my Super Bowl every year. It's like February, March, early April is when it really starts to crack down. It's like my tax season. So I'm hoping that once I get my life back a little bit, I have some time off scheduled at the end of this month. Hopefully I'll be able to get some spinning done. But it hasn't really shaken out that way so far. This is really the first spinning I've done since I spun up those roll lags that I made with Alex. So I'll let you know how it goes. I'll hopefully have some hand spun to show off next time because I miss it. I miss having hand spun to show everyone. I think that's everything that I'm working on right now. This has been a very efficient start to this episode. Usually I like to ease into it and start you off nice and slow, but I didn't want to force my dog to sit here the whole time. And it's his birthday, so we had to show you his sweater. So we're moving along at a little bit of a clip today, but I do have a finished object, and that is a heavy one. So not physically heavy, but emotionally heavy. So just full disclosure, from here on out, I'm going to talk about death, grief, loss, that kind of thing. If that's not something you feel like you can emotionally handle right now, no pressure. Click off this video, watch it another time. You don't even have to watch it ever. It's fine. I get it. I'm right there with you. But I think it's important for me to catalog this, if not for anybody else, then for myself, because this process is one for the books. So I've talked about this a little bit on my podcast before, but my grandmother Anita passed last May, and she left me her yarn stash, which is full of acrylic yarn that I can't wear. So I'm making it into some heirlooms to give to family members because I don't want it to go to waste. I basically took about a third of it, and then the rest we donated, and it's still a lot of yarn. I'm going to make something for both of my siblings, myself, and my cousin, and then my dad and my uncle. So I've got projects picked out for them, but I was thinking about how I had bought yarn to knit her a shawl before she passed, because we found out that she was terminal. The doctors told us she had 6 months. So I said, oh shit, I should make her a shawl because she's going to start getting cold. She passed of cancer. She had melanoma. So she was very frail, constantly having trouble regulating her temperature. And I was like, you know what? A nice wool shawl would be great for her. So I ordered some yarn. I was going to start knitting it. I kept putting it off because that meant it was the end. And I have a very complicated relationship with this particular grandmother. She loved us all very deeply, but she also was a very ardent Trump supporter. And for a lot of my life, I won't say she stopped loving me. I don't think that that's true. But she made it very clear how unhappy she was with my life choices. And by that, I mean my queerness and my transness. And she would post horrible things on my Facebook page and comment on things. And to the point where my mom would have to step in, and my parents are divorced. And she's got her own trauma with my grandmother. And I mean, that was her mother-in-law. And it's a whole thing. It got to the point where I think she was trying to turn me back to God. She was a very religious person. I mean, she had a Roman Catholic mass in Latin for her funeral. It was a full Latin mass with veils and everything. She was very Italian Roman Catholic, capital R, capital C. I went to Catholic school as a kid. I was raised in that faith. I no longer practice it. And that Catholic trauma and that very deeply queer abandonment trauma with her was a really big part of our relationship. And really the one thing that brought us back together toward the end of her life was fiber arts, because she found out that I had been knitting and spinning. She actually didn't know that I knit until very recently. I've been knitting for a lot of my life. I taught myself at about age 11, did it a little bit as a hobby here and there. I made little pot holders and scarves and blankets for my American Girl dolls and stuff like that, but it was all just garter stitch squares. So I didn't really consider it knitting. It was just I'm just doing something with my hands. In retrospect, I was stimming. I'm autistic. But I picked it back up in college, started to actually make items. Again, took a break in grad school because I was too busy to even comprehend. I was working 12-hour days at least. And I didn't really start talking about my fiber arts life until very recently, 2, maybe 3 years ago. And I got to talking with her about wanting to pick up spinning. And she said, oh, I have an old spinning wheel that my friend gave me that I haven't been able to get to work. If you want it, it's yours. So I picked it up. Sadly, I was never able to get it to work. it was missing it was a very old wheel. It was clearly an antique. So I was able to pass it on to someone who was going to be able to love it, who had an antique wheel collection and wanted to give it some love. But when she passed, I got my kiwi in honor of her and named it Margarita. Her favorite flower was daisies, and Margarita is Italian for daisy. So I consider her kind of one of my like patron ancestors of my fiber arts journey. So this is getting into kind of the woo-woo side of it too. I have always had a really close connection with like the concept of spirits and the concept of communicating with ancestors and loved ones after death. My mom's best friend, Andrea, Aunt Andy, we called her. She was basically like another aunt of ours. She was very important to us. Passed away, oh God, it was almost 10 years ago now. And she talks to me like every day. Her favorite color was purple, so sometimes I'll see flashes of purple. And usually that's like thinking of you, or she'll send a butterfly, or one of her favorite songs will come on the radio. And I always know that's her because I do not share her music taste. So when one of her favorite songs comes on, I'm usually like, hey, Andy, what's up? So I've always had that kind of relationship with loved ones who have passed on. And I had an experience with a friend of mine who's a medium, Shay, who, this is actually how we met. I met her through this reading. She actually told me that she was able to deduce from her communication with my grandmother after she passed that she hadn't crossed over because she was worried about me and saw me going through the process of wanting to get top surgery and wanted me to like pray to Mary Mother of God and like come back to, she saw it as like her one last act before moving on after death, to like turn me back to God and get me to see the error of my ways. So I very firmly set a boundary. I said, please don't come into contact with me until after I have surgery. And a couple of weeks ago, we started getting some serious signs that she had actually crossed over and had gone through that process of life review and kind of seen the bigger picture of it all. And I've been getting apologies for like the past 2 weeks. So it's been a really beautiful experience for me. If you don't believe in that stuff, that's cool, but just please don't come in my comments telling me not to believe in it. This is my experience with grief and my personal spiritual beliefs. So just please respect that. I am grieving, and this is how I grieve in my way. And I don't want to be told that my spiritual beliefs are incorrect because that's not true for me. So yeah, I mean, that's been really special. She sends mourning doves. So if we see just a single mourning dove or hear just a single mourning dove, that's usually her. There were always mourning doves at her house. And mourning doves are almost always found in pairs, so that if it's a single mourning dove, we usually know that that's her. She's also been sending some very obvious signs to my mom, which is wild. It's been the heaviest for the people that I feel like she has the most apologies to give to, which is really cool. And I feel like there's been a lot of, I'm gonna cry filming this, holy cow. There's been a lot of like reflective energy, which is really cool. So it's almost my birthday. It's gonna be my birthday next week. So it's fun timing. It was her birthday a couple of weeks ago. So that was around the time that we started to see it. And that's been a really cool process to like knit through her stash. So we called her Grandma Bomber or Mama Bomber, Mommer Bomber. Again, I have a speech impediment. Bear with me. She used to play softball when she was younger, and her nickname was the Bronx Bomber. She lived in the Bronx. And when she had my dad and my uncle, they called her Mommer Bomber. And then when they had kids, they were like, what do we call you? And then she said, oh, Grandma Bomber, obviously. So these are my bomber projects using her yarn. I'm calling them kind of gratuitously, if you will. So this is the second of the ones that I've finished. This is actually identical to one that I made a couple of months ago. I think showed it off in episode 1 of the podcast. So if you want to see the other one I made, because I don't have it anymore, I've given it away, you're welcome to flip back to that episode and you'll see it there. But I also have some pictures on my Instagram. I decided my first bomber projects were going to be to knit my current living grandparents a blanket to keep them warm, because I regretted not being able to do that for Bomber. So this is the second one that I've made. This is the Candle Flame Lapghan by Nancy Marchant. And it is a 2-color brioche lap blanket. It turned out beautifully. And this is in just some miscellaneous acrylic yarn. I do not have the brand name near me. I am planning to donate the rest of it. Again, I can't knit for myself with it, and if it's just sitting around in my stash, I'll never use it. So I'm going to donate it either to the knitting club on campus where I work or to another organization. But this was a slog for me because it's knit on size 10 needles, which hurt my wrists very badly. I used to be a fine artist in high school. I used to be very into digital art to the point where I would be sketching and drawing 12 hours a day. I would draw all day in school, come home, and then draw for another 6 to 8 hours. And I gave myself some serious wrist injuries from doing that because I was a kid. I didn't know you had to stretch your hands when you did that. So especially my right hand, I have some old recurring wrist injuries, and big needles really aggravate those. So if you see me knitting a lot of finer gauge projects, or like maybe not even finer gauge, but like DK weight and under, that would be why. I do not knit with bulky yarn. I do not knit with super bulky yarn. I barely knit with worsted weight yarn. And even that has to be at a smaller gauge with a smaller needle. So this was tough for me to finish. And it was also tough because I had already made one. It's a beautiful pattern. I think I would consider making one at a smaller gauge, but it would take forever. So maybe not. We'll see. Maybe one day. It is a lovely, lovely finished project though. And it's because it's brioche, it's got these big airy holes that kind of retain some warm air. So I'm really pleased. This is for my Grandma Mary. The other one that I made was purple. It's for my Grandpa John. They're my mom's parents, and they're both still alive. Lovely. Thankfully was what I meant to say. I said lovely instead. My brains are scrambled this week. Woo! My grandpa, I actually ran into. He was at the same. His nursing home is the same organization that my grandmother was at when she was in hospice, when she was in the process of dying. And he was just kind of sitting out in the common room while we were saying goodbye to her. So I stopped by and said hi to him because I missed him. And I thought it was really important. I needed some comfort, and like I hadn't seen him in a really long time. I don't live in my hometown anymore, so I don't get to see him very much. And he remembered me. He has dementia, and he remembered me. And he told me he wanted me to make him a purple blanket. I said, I'm going to knit you a blanket. What color do you want? And he goes, purple. Which surprised me because usually he's like a neutrals, blues and greens kind of dude. But then I asked my mom, and apparently purple is one of his favorite colors. So I knit him a purple blanket. And he loves it. She sent me a picture of him with it on his lap, and it's like all the way up here, and he's like cuddling in his blanket, eating his chocolate pudding, like the cutie that he is. Love that man to death. He's one of the kindest men that I know, if not the kindest man that I know. He's a gem. I'm going to be devastated when he finally does pass, but he's doing really well right now. He's got some health issues, but he's hanging in there, and my mom and my Aunt Mary see him just about every week. He's kicking it with the nurses and loving life and watching TV and eating chocolate pudding, which honestly, that's all any of us can ask for. So he's got it good. And then my Grandma Mary, my relationship with her is a little bit different. She is not as warm of a person, but she loves us very deeply. She raised 4 kids with very little money. She's a very practical woman. She lived through a lot of trauma in her life. She was a lifelong alcoholic because of it. So, she's got some serious brain chemistry issues because of just living a very hard life. So, she has been through the ringer, and it shows in kind of the way that she lives her life and the way that she now copes with disabilities that were caused by trauma. That I don't even think she knows she had, because, she is of the she's Irish Catholic, tough as nails lady. If you walked up to her and told her that she was, that she had a mental condition, she would scream in your face. She's perfectly sane. So, she is physically disabled, and she knows this. She's aging, but that part of her, her health, I don't know that she's ever really had the privilege of being able to learn about. So I decided to make her, I found this like steely gray yarn and then a matching kind of powder blue in Bomber's stash. And the blue is almost the exact color of her eyes. It's almost identical. It's a little darker. And she has very characteristic gray hair, and she has since I can remember. It was dark when she was younger, but since I've been alive, it's been gray. So I always associate those two colors with her. So I knit that blanket for her. Hopefully she can like find some peace in that, because she's lived a really hard life and she could use some warmth, even if she's like determined to just power through. Like I hope that this is at least like a passive sign to her that she doesn't have to do that. That she's at a time in her life when she can enjoy being loved on a little bit more. She used to knit things for us, and she always, every time I see her and she sees me knitting, she always like wistfully tells me about how she used to knit for us and how she can't knit anymore. She hasn't been able to knit for at least a decade because of her arthritis. So she used to be pretty prolific. She knit us like shawls and sweaters and mittens with strings attached to go through our coat sleeves so we wouldn't lose them, which was a brilliant idea. If you have little ones, I highly recommend doing that, to tie some waste yarn to each mitten and put them through their coat sleeves so they can't lose the mittens. It's a genius idea. You're welcome from Grandma Mary. So I get to knit for her now, and that's really special. And she's still kicking too. I mean, living her life. So I hope she likes it. I'm going to bring it to her next time I'm in town, and I hope she appreciates it. We'll see how it goes. So those are my first two bomber projects. I don't have the first one to show you because I already gave it to my grandpa, but that has been a very emotional process. I don't think I'm going to start another bomber project for a little while. This is around the time of year that she passed, so it's a little harder to do emotionally right now. So I'm going to take care of myself and maybe take a little break. I also have some other projects that need some like actual like design projects that I need to work on that are time sensitive. So that's the priority. I'm excited. We don't have any Q&A today, so we're going to skip that this week. But if you have any questions you'd like me to answer, it can be questions about me and my knitting, it can be about my life. If you have questions about a project you're working on, you need help with, you can drop those. There's a link in the description. It's also in the link in my bio on Instagram and in Ravelry. So you can ask a question in that form and I will answer it on the podcast. That is the only way to submit a question to be answered, because I have severe ADHD and I have to be able to have one place to track them all. So if you do want your question answered on the podcast, please don't leave it in the comments, either here or somewhere else. Please don't email me, just use that Google form. Just click the link, write your question. If you want to stay anonymous, you don't have to fill in your name, or you can fill in a fake name, that's totally fine. And I'll answer your question on the podcast, and it'll be a whole lot of fun. So I hope to have more to share with you next time. I'm hoping to have at least a pair of socks off the needles, but we'll see how that goes. And I have a design that I'm going to start a sample for very soon, so I'm nervous about. That's my first garment design, so I'll talk more about that next time. But before I bounce, the Rivers and Roads cowl pattern is live on my website and on Ravelry. You can now buy it and knit it if you would like to do so. Highly recommend. And I am wrapping up test knits on a couple of projects. I actually have to get some edits back to my tech editor today on one of them so I can get the pattern out to testers. But the Wildwood Socks test is underway, and those are going to be published in early April. So keep an eye out for those. If you want to be the first to know about new patterns, new podcast episodes, discounts, all that jazz, all that good stuff, you can sign up for my email newsletter, which you can do on my website, and there is a link to do so below. Yeah, it's a good time. That is how I update people when I start something new. So if you want to, definitely make sure you get that. If you want to make sure you don't miss it in your social media algorithm. If there's ever a time when I have stuff going on but don't have time to sit down and film a podcast episode, that's a great way to get updates. So highly recommend. I'm going to go finish my pattern updates for my tech editor, and I will see you all next time. Take care.